Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be, and a warm welcome to this session on experiences and investments in conservation agriculture and sustainable mechanization for smallholders in Africa. This is a session jointly organized by the African Conservation Tillage Network and the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. My name is Louis Hove, and I'm with FAO. I'm the Resilience Team Leader for Southern Africa. This session's objective is to share experiences on sustainable agriculture mechanization as an approach to facilitating the uptake of conservation agriculture by farmers, and more specifically smallholder farmers in Africa. You may ask, why smallholder farmers? Because they produce up to 80% of the food consumed by the continent's population. And efforts to transform the agri-food systems so that they are more resilient and more inclusive should focus more on this group of farmers. Just some numbers for context. Of the estimated 180 million hectares under conservation agriculture in the world, only 1.5% or 2.7 million hectares are in Africa. And most of those hectares are under large-scale commercial farming. The smallholders are still low in terms of hectarage, being under CA. But in terms of numbers of CA, number of farmers of practicing CA in Africa, 98% of the farmers are smallholders. And in Africa, as I said earlier on, they produce up to 80% of the foods for the continent's population. The efforts to promote conservation agriculture have been intensified in the last decade. And we've seen a number of countries in Africa opting to adopt CA as a core component of climate-smart agriculture. In 2008-09, we had about 9 countries. Now we have 25 countries that have CA as a key component of climate-smart agriculture. The area in 2008-09 was about 485,000 hectares. Now, as I said earlier on, we have 2.7 million hectares under conservation agriculture in Africa. This is most encouraging, but we have to do more. We've heard from various speakers during the week on the benefits presented by conservation agriculture to farmers, society, and the environment, and the need to transform agri-food systems so that they are more inclusive and resilient. We've also heard of the need for incentives and mechanisms to support the farmers as they transition from the conventional systems to more sustainable conservation agriculture. One could argue that African smallholder farmers need the support the most. What must we do then? And what should we do to make sure that we unlock this potential? And also align ourselves to the African Union's vision of 25 by 25, which is the African Union has set a target that by 2025, 25 million smallholder farmers should be practicing climate-smart agriculture in Africa. We have a long list of speakers whom we hope are going to provide some options that will help Africa scale up the adoption of conservation agriculture. We'll start with the opening segment, where we are going to have opening remarks from representatives of the African Union, the FAO, and the African Conservation Tillage Network. Our first speaker will be Dr. Freeman, who is the Regional Program Leader for Africa in the FAO. Dr. Freeman, it's over to you.
Thank you very much, Louis. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are. On behalf of the FAO Regional Office for Africa, I would like to thank the organizers of the 8th World Congress on Conservation Agriculture for inviting us to participate in this very important event. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the Africa Plenary session on experiences and investments in conservation agriculture and sustainable mechanization for smallholder farmers in Africa. I'm very happy to see many stakeholders represented in this important session, where experiences and investments in conservation agriculture and sustainable mechanization for smallholder farmers will be shared and discussed. This session will also explore how appropriate mechanization interventions could be leveraged to accelerate uptake and scaling up of conservation agriculture as an integral part of efforts to sustainably transform food and agriculture systems in Africa. The theme of this session is responding to important global and continental commitments such as Agenda 2030, the Malabo Declaration, and the 2063 Agenda, the Africa we want. African countries are facing many challenges, including worsening food security and nutrition situation, climate change, soil degradation, youth unemployment, and so on. Despite these challenges, recent trends in Africa provide several growth opportunities in agri-food systems. Growing food markets, implementation of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, and free trade agreement, and accelerated digitalization are creating new opportunities that are driving rapid transformation in agri-food systems. We need to harness these opportunities and manage the challenges to make them work better for smallholder farmers, SMEs, and other actors in agri-food systems. Dialogues such as this one are critical for enhancing sustainable agricultural productivity, strengthening environmental resilience, and fostering food and nutrition security. The insights provided by you can underpin successful transformation of agri-food systems that create good quality jobs and other income opportunities, especially for rural communities, women, and youth. The 31st FAO Regional Conference for Africa noted that inclusive and sustainable agri-food systems transformation is necessary to feed a growing population and provide safe, nutritious, and affordable food that is balanced with sustainable natural resource management. Accelerating the use of conservation agriculture and enhanced use and access to mechanization, digitalization, and other appropriate technologies will significantly contribute to this goal. The Framework for Sustainable Agricultural Mechanization in Africa, FSAMA, emphasizes that meaningful changes in land preparation are required if we have to achieve a sustainable transformation of crop husbandry practices. To this end, conservation agriculture and other innovative practices are instrumental in achieving the desired changes. Despite several efforts to promote conservation agriculture and other innovative technologies, the uptake is still very low and uneven. For example, while we observe some progress in Southern and Eastern Africa sub-region, more needs to be done in West and Central Africa sub-region. We need to ramp up public and private investments in key areas, such as basic infrastructure, technology and innovation, and human resource development to bring about the required improvements in conservation agriculture and sustainable mechanization for smallholder farmers in Africa. The collaboration of public and participation of the public and private sectors are essential, as they both have key roles to play in this regard. Agriculture is the most inclusive tool to end poverty and hunger. FAO seeks to attain zero hunger and improve livelihoods of people, including smallholder farmers in Africa, by supporting the transformation to more efficient, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable agri-food systems for better production, better nutrition, a better environment, and a better life, leaving no one behind. Achieving global commitments such as these that we're discussing, and others such as Agenda 2030, Malabo Declaration, and the 2063 Agenda will be affected by how successful we are in working together. We all need to do more to continue creating and using existing spaces to promote inclusive dialogue and better coordinate implementation of these initiatives at the national level. I'm optimistic that this session will revitalize interest in conservation agriculture and sustainable agricultural mechanization, including the use of innovative agricultural machinery and digital solutions in Africa, especially by smallholder farmers. FAO stands ready to work with all of you. So we are looking forward to the deliberations and recommendations for this session. You can be assured of our continued support towards achieving sustainable food and agriculture in Africa. I thank you for your attention. Over to you, Louis.
Thank you very much, Dr. Freeman, for those remarks. I think you've highlighted key points on the importance of collaboration, the importance of partnerships, the need for investments, especially on the smallholder farmers, and assisting the governments, the national governments, to scale up the uptake of sustainable approaches such as conservation agriculture. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Dr. Joseph Mureithi, Chairperson of the Board of Directors of the African Conservation Tillage Network. He's based in Nairobi, Kenya. Over to you, Dr. Mureithi.
Thank you, Chair. Greetings to all. I'd like to first recognize the senior government officials who have joined this session, the representatives of the African Union Commission who are with us, FAO representatives, sponsors of this Congress, the organizers of the 8th World Congress on Conservation Agriculture, ACT representatives, participants of the African session, all distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is with profound honor and pressure to be part of this very important African session in this Congress, dedicated for a conversation on Africa in modeling, with the population of Africa expected to double to 2.5 billion by 2050, and the recent increases in the number of the poor. The question being asked is how Africa will feed this growing population. Fortunately, the endorsement by the African heads of state and government 2003 in Maputo, Mozambique, which aimed at transforming African agriculture to ensure food and nutrition security, reduce poverty and create jobs, embraces a landmark vision to address the challenge. This was further reinforced by the June 14 African Head of States and Government adoption of the Malabo Declaration on accelerated agricultural growth and transformation for shared prosperity and improved livelihoods, with a wider mandate and more targeted approach to achieve the cultural vision of the shared prosperity and improved livelihoods for the continent. Ladies and gentlemen, we can without doubt eliminate poverty and end hunger and malnutrition in Africa through massive agricultural transformation. Yes, it can be done. Africa must rise up and unlock its full agricultural potential with all its bright sunshine, abundant water resources, affordable labor, to a global powerhouse in food and agriculture, to feed not only its people, but others in the world. The big question, nevertheless, is how to target and transform the million smallholder farmers managing 1 hectare of land to create wealth sustainably using their land and water resources. We must now map, analyze, and scale the successful models, innovation, and case studies from across Africa, including those shared in this session. The scaling up of climate-smart agricultural farming requires investments from the private sector, national governments, and development partners. This in turn requires the scientific evidence that the technologies, innovation practices we front for scaling up are economically profitable, socially and environmentally sustainable. It will be vital to prove to investors that the agriculture we're talking about is more resilient to climate change, entails less drudgery, and is attractive to women and youth, and is less risky as a worthwhile investment option. As a co-organizer of this session and the Congress, the African Conservation Tillage Network remains committed and focused to ensure that Africa's conservation agriculture and sustainable agricultural mechanization interests and issues are addressed. This session, according to us, is meant to provide an opportunity for Africa to synthesize and share its conservation agriculture and sustainable agricultural mechanization developments in the continent and provoke strategic thinking on the sustainable farming to propel Africa towards the Africa we want. For this to happen, we must change the approach to agriculture on the continent. Agriculture needs to be viewed differently. It's neither a way of life nor a social safety net to the jobless. Agriculture is a thriving business, even for the smallholder, smallholders managing 1 hectare. It requires prioritization for greater investments by the private sector across the entire agricultural value chains, including enhanced access to improved seed and fertilizers, agricultural mechanization services, irrigation and water management, warehousing, community exchange, food manufacturing and processing. Ladies and gentlemen, as a continental network promoting conservation agriculture and sustainable agricultural mechanization, ACT values and commends the African Union Commission efforts in developing and in the development and initial rollout of the FAO and AU framework for sustainable mechanization. The framework strongly promotes a shift from conventional tillage practices to more environmentally adapted practices, such as CA and minimum or no-till systems. Understanding the urgent need to operate the framework, I must report here that FAO and ACT signed a memorandum of understanding to work together in its implementation. The joint efforts concentrates on the development of small and medium entrepreneurs involving the mechanization or mechanized conservation agricultural systems. The huge benefits by CA to farmers and the environment create opportunities for faster and massive adoption of CA, way beyond doubling in 20 years. The potential is enormous and the opportunities abound. As I conclude, I wish to reiterate that this is the opportunity to dialogue and converse together to trigger critical thinking towards unlocking the handles, curtailing, scaling conservation agriculture and sustainable agricultural mechanization in the country. Let us be committed to it, because what must be done now is to unlock the opportunities for millions of farmers in Africa to adopt CA in alignment with the African Union vision of having 25 million farmers practice CA by 2025. And I hope and pray that out of this extraordinary virtual conferencing, we will trigger subsequent efforts towards having collaborative and stronger programs of action that will assist Africa to move forward towards self-sustaining and stable agriculture that will be able to sufficiently feed its growing population and contribute to its economic and social development. I wish to thank the organizers for this session and the Congress, led by the European Conservation Agriculture Federation, FAO, Swiss No-Till Club, and ACT for bringing us together despite the stubborn global pandemic. May you have pleasant and fruitful deliberations during this session and the remaining part of the God bless you, God bless Africa. And thank you to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Joseph, and thank you. I am not able to summarize everything, but I would just like to pick out one point you mentioned, that the need for change in mindset to treat farming as a business, even if you're a smallholder farmer. And also you reiterated what the previous speaker said, the need for private public partnerships to unlock the potential of agriculture as a way of addressing our unemployment challenges as well as food insecurity. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is from the FAO and is Dr. Xia Jingyuan, who is the Director for Plant Protection and Protection Division in FAO. Over to you,
Thank you very much, Chair, distinguished guest, dear colleague, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm very pleased to welcome all of you to the special events on the experience and investment in conservation, agricultural, mechanization for smallholders in Africa. This session devoted to Africa is really timely and will significantly contribute to defeat hunger and poverty through sustainable benefiting from modern agricultural mechanization technology. Good news, last week, the 42nd FAO Conference endorsed the FAO Strategic Framework for 2022-2031. In this framework, the main focus is on supporting the UN Agenda for 2030 through transformation to more efficient, more inclusive, more resilient, and more sustainable agri-food system for better production, better nutrition, and a better environment, and a better life, leaving no one behind. Accordingly, the renewed mission of the FAO Plant Production and Protection Division, or NSP, is enabling the transition to more efficient, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable plant production and protection through two very important strategies, optimization and minimization. So what is meaning for optimization? Optimization strategy means to optimize the structure, functionality, and the surface cropping system by combining the key component and adapting the new technology. Well, the minimization strategy means minimizing the crop losses from pest damage and the reduce risk from inappropriate use of chemical pesticides and the environmental contamination from overuse of chemical fertilizer. The regulation is the key for sustainable crop production and protection through optimization and minimization, where the conservation agriculture, or CA, would play an irreplaceable role for that purpose. For example, at global level, since 2008 and 2009, the area adapted for conservation agriculture has increased by 10.5 million hectares every year, where 50% in the North country and another 50% in the South country. In 2019, 18, and 19, the acreage for conservation agriculture reached over 200 million hectares and covering over more than 90 countries. FAO collaborate with several technical partners and financial institutions to promote conservation agriculture and sustainable mechanization, including CGIAR, European Conservation Agriculture Federation, ECAF, African Conservation Teenage Network, or ACT, and the Conservation Teenage Research Center, China Agriculture University. For example, FAO conducted over 20 projects on conservation agriculture in 18 countries during 2020, 2010, and 2020, which has brought about significant economic, social, and environmental benefit, in particularly for small-scale farmers. The launch of Framework for Sustainable Agriculture Mechanization for Africa, or FCAMA, by FAO and the African Union Commission at the 26th session of CLAC in 2019, show the importance of the national and regional agricultural strategy. Today, in this plenary session, 5 cases study and from different countries in Africa will promote discussion on adoption of conservation, agricultural, and sustainable mechanization for smallholder in African countries through provision of technical support and resource mobilization. In addition, brand new FAO report on agri-hire business model for investing in sustainable mechanization will be launched in this event. Our future is really major focus should be innovation for digital technology, particularly emphasized for precision agriculture. Dear colleague, with this few remarks, I wish you all a very fruitful discussion and successful sessions. Thank you all. Over to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Shah. Thank you very much, Director Shah, for your remarks. Again, you touched on the important points of the commitment of FAO to take the countries along the journey of transitioning to conservation agriculture and other sustainable practices, and the creation of the enabling environment by all stakeholders and the partnerships that are required to make this happen. Thank you very much for your remarks. We were supposed to have remarks by the African Union Commission, but the speaker has not yet joined, so we will proceed with the session and shift gears. I think to just summarize from the opening remarks, I think there is a commitment amongst all the organizations that are represented here to support the transition from the conventional non-sustainable practices to more sustainable practices like conservation agriculture. They have provided us with options that are available, experiences that have been had on the African continent, and what we need to do to scale up conservation agriculture. They've provided some strategic options that we can follow. The commitment, the encouragement, the partnerships that are required, and with partnership and many stakeholders comes coordination of all the stakeholders. Thank you very much to the speakers in the opening segment of the session. We will now shift gears and move on to the next segment, which is more on technical papers by speakers from FAO and ACT on how we can mechanize CA in Africa. The first speaker is Mr. Joseph Mpagalile. He's an agricultural engineer with the FAO Division of Plant Production and Protection. He's going to give us the highlights of the framework for sustainable agriculture mechanization in Africa, commonly called FSAMA. focusing on element 6 of that framework, which speaks to sustainable transformation of land preparation and crop animal husbandry practices. Over to you, Joseph.
Thank you so much, Louis. Thank you so much. Can I have the presentation loaded, please? Okay, so thank you so much, Chair. My presentation this morning is going to be brief, highlighting the Framework for Sustainable Agricultural Mechanization in Africa, known as FSAMA. And as you said, especially focusing on the element number 6, which is on sustainable transformation of land preparation and crop and animal husbandry practices. So the Framework for Sustainable Agricultural Mechanization in Africa, FSAMA, is a result of a continuous and thorough discussion at a higher level, with involving policymakers, experts from Africa Union, member states, from the Africa Union Commission, FAO, and other partners, as well as experts in the fields of food and agriculture. The framework was prepared in an inclusive manner, and then it was presented and endorsed by the Specialized Technical Committee meeting of the Africa Union in 2017, and eventually it was launched during the side event at the Committee of Agriculture meeting at FAO in Rome on the 5th of October 2018. What it does, the framework informs stakeholders the significance of mainstreaming mechanization and responding to both Malabo Declaration and Agenda 2063 of the African Union, the Africa we want. The framework avoids being prescriptive. Instead, it provides 10 priority elements which countries, regional economic commissions or bodies could use it, as well as private sector and all stakeholders in mechanization can use the framework in their quest to develop mechanization in the continent. So now what I'm going to do is to very quickly highlight the 10 elements of the Framework for Sustainable Agricultural Mechanization in Africa, and then come back and focus on element number 6 before I conclude my talk. So the 10 elements of SAMA are divided into like 4 groups. First of all, we have elements which are under the 3 pillars of sustainability. This is commercial sustainability, environmental sustainability, and socio-economical sustainability. And then we have the last group of 2 elements which are overarching, and they cover or they cut across. Therefore, let me very quickly go through the 5 first elements which are emphasizing on making SAMA commercially sustainable. The first element under that category is the element that is emphasizing on all of us boosting income power through the use of appropriate technologies and innovative business models. Essentially, this element is, emphasizing on increasing farm power, taking into consideration that farm power in Africa, the use of farm power in Africa is still very low. So it's emphasizing on that. And it is pointing out that this could be done using 2 approaches. First of all, if possible, farmer ownership of mechanization equipment and machinery, or the second option, which we are promoting now, is the use of mechanization hire service providers who could provide mechanization services to the farmers. Then the second element is focusing on promoting innovative financing mechanisms for mechanization in Africa. I think we all agree that without financing, without having innovative financing mechanism for mechanization, it will be very difficult for mechanization to be developed and used by small-scale farmers widely in the continent. So this element is emphasizing on things like availability of credits and the direct grants to small-scale farmers especially, and also is emphasizing on the fact that investments in agriculture or in mechanization must be led by the private sector, while the public sector is creating conducive environment for that to happen. Then the third element is referring to building sustainable systems for manufacturing and distribution of mechanization inputs. What is saying is that we need to look at this aspect and ensure that within Africa, also we have viable entities led by the private sector, which are involved in manufacturing implements, equipment, especially for small-scale farmers within the continent, in addition to what we are receiving from outside the continent. But while doing so, it's also emphasizing the need for ensuring that we set standards, that testing is carried out, that we have support franchise for distribution, repair, as well as maintenance of agricultural machineries. Then we have sorry, I need to go back. Then the last slide is, or the last element under this category is the element that is emphasizing, the fourth one is emphasizing on the making mechanization across the agri-food value chain and not only focusing on the production side. So we need to make mechanization across the agri-food value chain. And then the last element of the fifth element is emphasizing on ensuring that we have sustainable or innovative systems for sustainable technology development and transfer within the continent. What he's saying is that we need to develop innovative and futuristic technologies that are targeting small-scale farmers, youth, as well as women. And to do so, we need also to enhance the aspects of research, to make sure that these technologies are researched and we have enough data for them to be outscaled and used by small-scale farmers. Then the next element is element number 6, which is focusing on making sustainable agricultural mechanization environmentally sustainable. And what he's saying is that we need to make sure that we have sustainable transformation of land preparation, crop and animal husbandry. As I said earlier, I will come back to this element and talk more on what it entails. But now let me continue with the remaining elements. So the next element or group of elements are those elements which are making SAMA or sustainable agricultural mechanization in Africa socio-economically sustainable. And here we have two elements. We have element number 7, which is looking at the roles of small-scale farmers, women and the youth. And we also have element number 8, which is emphasizing on the human resource development and capacity building. So you can see here, we need to look at the role that small-scale farmers are playing, and we need to support them either through cooperatives and other means. We need to look at how women are also participating. Therefore, the gender aspects need to be incorporated in our efforts to promote sustainable agricultural mechanization. We need to make sure that the youth are also involved, and here we need to make sure that we also promote innovative technologies, so that youth can be attracted back to agriculture. When it comes to the aspect of human resource development, we need to make sure that we build capacity along the value chain from farmers, from mechanization and service providers, those are involved in value addition, agro-processing, all the way to marketing of the food products. Then we have the last group of 2 elements, which are overarching elements of FSAMA. And element number 9 is emphasizing on having long-term vision approach. And this is with regard to supporting countries to develop policy and strategies that could support sustainable agricultural mechanization in the continent. And then the last element is with regard to creating sustainable institutions for regional cooperation and networking. It's emphasizing that we need to network, we need to share experience so that we can not reinvent the wheel, but share what others have already done on the same aspects. Now I come to element number 6. So element number 6 is is looking at the sustainable transformation of land and crop husbandry. And what he's saying is that, or the aim of this element is to make sure that we transform crop production techniques from the current conventional methods to sustainable agricultural practices. And is emphasizing on the conservation agriculture, for example, minimum mechanical disturbance of soil, reduced and zero tillage, is also looking at permanent and soil organic cover and crop diversification. It's also looking at best practices that each region in Africa could use, and for that we need research, sharing experiences to ensure that that one is done. We need also to emphasize on local innovations and adaptation. We need to make sure that all regions in Africa are, supported to transform towards sustainable agricultural practices. And on overall, we need to look very well at the aspect of linking this element to the need for farm power, because without farm power, it will be difficult to transform to what we want to be. Also, this element is emphasizing that we need to ensure that we assess the current land preparation practices and crop husbandry. We need to have short and medium and long-term planning, incorporated in our work, so that we have better inclusive, approaches, and we have better understanding of the costs that are involved in those transformations. We need also to ensure that there is an adoption of, land preparation techniques with regard to changing the mindset of farmers, supporting them to change their mindset, and making sure that we always provide the support that is needed. In order to conclude, I have some few points that I would like to share. First of all, I need to reiterate again that FSAMA emphasizes on the need of transformation towards sustainable land preparation and crop husbandry. Secondly, to do so, we need to have significant changes in land preparation so as to achieve that transformation. And we also need to enhance innovative technologies, including digitalization, because this is needed to support the efforts towards sustainable transformation of land preparation and crop husbandry, as I said. And we also emphasize on the collaboration and sharing of experiences on conservation agriculture, for example, and sustainable agriculture mechanization in order to upscale the uptake of these technologies amongst the small-scale farmers. Thank you so much for your time. I'm sharing now the links to the Framework for Sustainable Agriculture Mechanization, and I encourage all colleagues to visit these sites and read in details the Framework for Sustainable Agriculture Mechanization. And I also invite you to join us in the webinar series that we're organizing to operationalize the Framework for Sustainable Agriculture Mechanization in Africa. Thank you so much, and over to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Joseph. Thank you for sharing the overview of that framework, which is a very important framework for us to take mechanization of conservation agriculture forward. As you have said, FAO is working with partners to actualize this framework. And in that respect, I would like to call the next speaker, who is Mr. Josef Kienzle, also an agricultural engineer with FAO Division of Plant Production and Protection. He will take us through the launch of the FAO publication, Agri-hire in Sub-Saharan Africa. This is one way of trying to make sure that the mechanization takes place. And he's going to share business models for investment, for investing in sustainable mechanization. The floor is yours, Joseph.
Yes, hello, everybody listening around the world. Very pleased to be part of this event. And yes, indeed, this specific part is purposely put here because FAO, together with its partners, African Conservation Tillage Network and local partners, we have worked for almost 2 years on this publication that is now out since this morning in online in English and French, and it's called Agri-hire in Sub-Saharan Africa: Business Models Investing in Sustainable Mechanization. And there is a background to this. There is a reason why we put this here. in this meeting. And let me go through very briefly. Okay, at least I can see it works. As it was emphasized before by previous speaker, we need to make mechanization accessible to all farmers, including the smallholder farmers. And we need to make mechanization resilient to the effects of climate change. And that means to overcome a number of challenges, which we try to tackle in this publication and in this process. There is the issue of affordability of agricultural machinery and tools and implements. That is a big challenge. There is the aspect of capacity development broadly for the technicians, the operators, but also the managers for mechanization. It's an entire pool of skill sets, and meaning also jobs that are in there for this, that we need, new jobs basically. There's also the need for rural infrastructure, including the digital communication to make mechanization hire services happen. And then of course we need that conducive environment that we have been talking about in the summer framework, and Dr. Shah also mentioned it. We need this environment for mechanization interventions, where most farmers, but including smallholders, need to be able to invest. If they are not able to invest in their own machinery, at least to have access. And on top of it, it should not just be any type of machinery. It should be implements and tools that are conducive to the conservation agriculture principles, to the principles of sustainable cropping systems, as it was just outlined. And in this context, it is really the agri-hire services that is kind of the model that is for us the only solution to this challenge. So in this context, we have had organized 2 regional workshops in the second half of 2019, just before the COVID lockdown struck. And so it was 2 physical meetings, one in Cote d'Ivoire and one in Uganda, with West African and Southern and Eastern African countries. The innovation to these workshops maybe was that there was a competitive process before the workshops to identify business cases that could make it to become a business model for mechanization hire. So we did not just invite randomly, we actually were looking for ongoing small-scale businesses for mechanization hire and to be presented and maybe improved or maybe understood to multiply them. So, and basically the outcome was then to have these business models identified. So the purpose of this publication was basically to have these real life case studies and to show a variety of private sector-led business models providing agricultural machinery and equipment hire services. So something that's actually ongoing. And we wanted to identify why are they successful and provide the entry points for sustainable mechanization to duplicate, to multiply such business models, basically. And in the end, we in this publication, we are coming up with 5 models with different settings. They differ in terms of ownership of the business, from individual to group ownership, from farmers to entrepreneurs, and also they differ in the type of services that they provide. Some of them are strictly on field mechanization, others are covering the entire value chain, including the processing part and the transport. And then there are some other differences which I come to in the next slide. So if you look at the 5 models in the summary slide here, the model 1 is the most straightforward. It's an individual farmer who rents out his implement, his small mill, and for doing services to his neighbors, basically, in the same village. There's not much to talk about that. It is the most straightforward, simple model. In this model 2, we have the farmer groups that provide mechanization services. I will go into more details in the next slide. In the models 3, we have the private entrepreneurs that provide mechanization hire services, mainly in the field. In the model 4, it's basically a hub, a supplier that also takes care of the mechanization input supply chain with spare parts, with implements that is on sale. I mean, he's a dealer, but he has also the second pillar of hiring out the equipment and also maintaining and maintaining it. So that's a kind of more complete picture of that model. And the model 5 is really the most innovative one, because has the idea behind of a broker, of intermediaries. They do not own equipment. They are not farmers. They are not the bank. They're not a group. They actually only broker handle connecting farmers with the tractor driver and the owner and the operator to have timely services. And this is done mostly already with digital, or at least with communication tools like mobile phones and so on. So I'm going quickly through the models. I leave out model 1, but I start with model 2. Here we see there is the farmer group as a service provider. The group is servicing, firstly, their own members. Secondly, non-members, probably at a later stage after the group members are satisfied. The group is organizing machinery operators who work for the group, but the group is actually owning the machinery. And they have, of course, a link to the mechanization dealers and repair shops that must be close by. This is model number 2. The farmer group service providers. Model number 3 is the one where we have the entrepreneur service provider that mostly does field activities. This is more or less the classical entrepreneur who is not necessarily a farmer, and he provides services to his clients that are all over the place. And he may have a bank loan for the equipment, and he needs the link to the repair and service dealer. Now, the model number 4 is the one where the service provider is also taking care of the machinery supply chain. He sells machinery, he's repairing them, he's servicing them, he has the spare parts beside the actual service provision. And model number 5 is the one where we have the broker in the middle, somebody who organizes the clients and to organize the tractor owners and to make a schedule that in this village there will be these services tomorrow. So it is quicker. And it uses modern ICT technology, even GPS technology sometimes. It can have booking agents, but it's basically a platform organizing digitally the different services. So these are the 5 models. So now we compared them using a methodology called canvas building blocks. And there are 9 canvas building blocks. And today I'm only focusing on one example, which is the example of value proposition. And we can say, we are comparing the models with this example. For example, model 2 and 3 cover almost all agricultural services, whereas model 4 and 5 are limited to on-farm operations. Model 4 has the advantage that it covers the full supply chain, meaning spare part supply, repair and services are guaranteed in a way, which is a big advantage. And model 5 is the one that has the brokerage model, which is basically much faster. The waiting time for the service is getting slow. So here we go. These are the 5 models, and this was the example how we compared them. My second last slide. We need success factors for mechanization hire services. We need skillful staff and leadership. We need diversification of mechanization services. We need involvement of farmer organizations. We need the close linkages to processors and aggregators because of the marketing and the value chain. And we need access to finance in all services. and infrastructure and the presence of suppliers of agricultural machinery and equipment, which is actually in the model 4. This was it. We have the 5 business models presented. We believe with these models we can compare the existing ones, but also maybe design better ones, and we will be able to, with this publication, to get on with even new innovations and creative models throughout Africa for mechanization, higher investments. And if you want to download the publication, it's available online. And if you don't find the link, contact us, we will send it to you. So thanks a lot. And next speaker.
Thank you, Joseph, and for sharing this important knowledge product, which I think will make a difference on the conservation agricultural landscape in Africa. We need to have farmers access. Farmers need access to mechanization for them to scale up conservation agriculture. Thank you. On next speaker, and I would like to ask you, Engineer Saidi, to please keep to 10 minutes. Engineer Saidi is the Executive Secretary of the African Conservation Tillage Network, and is based in Nairobi. You will present on the importance of networking and linkages in sustainable agriculture mechanization, giving us an overview of the Africa Mechanized platform. Over to you, Saidi.
Okay, so thank you very much, Chair. Our experiences are showing that the views of the national practitioners, mainly the farmers, also the researchers, are not adequately synthesized and included in the major agricultural policy and investment agenda in sub-Saharan Africa. And success rate of many investment programs. Like what we have seen in many of the presentations already made in this Congress, the role of knowledge management exchange networking is pivotal. So in this presentation, I will share with you such experiences on the Africa Mechanize platform. And as already explained by Joseph Mpagalile, in the sustainable agricultural mechanization framework, conservation agriculture is one of the main pillars, one of the main elements of that strategy. Now, the platform, the Africa Mechanized platform, is aiming to enhance knowledge management, information sharing, networking, and partnerships in Africa. And it has been developed under the African Union framework with the technical support of FAO and Secretariat's functions provided by ACT, but is also contributing to operationalize not only element 10 on the networking, but also the other 10 elements, considering that knowledge management is cross-cutting. And is an all-inclusive, not-for-profit neutral platform addressing the sustainable agricultural mechanization and developmental interests of all AU member states with support of national governments, development partners, and the private sector. The genesis of the platform was a meeting held in Nairobi in 2016, organized by partners including FAO, World Bank, UNIDO, SEMA, and many others as listed there. And the consensus was on the need for formation of a virtual sustainable agricultural mechanization knowledge exchange platform. And ACT was asked to initiate that effort. And from the initial pillars of this effort, you can see the focus on 4 elements. One is the knowledge hub. 2 is the capacity building, networking, but also a magazine and a journal, and technical assistance. And In the Knowledge Hub, the vision is when fully developed, it should be able to provide demanded information instantly and at no cost. So in there, we have several elements like an e-resource, contributing to knowledge by enabling people to share content in whatever form, including social media, but also with a newsroom and events for sharing such events to make sure the knowledge is adequately shared. When the capacity building, partnerships and networking is effected, very strongly also covered by Joseph Mpagalile, it should be able to empower the local people to take action on local issues and generate solutions to community issues themselves. So it's about having that conversation, having the dialogue, the synthesis to find out what works best for which communities and circumstances. Some of the capacity development thrusts, they include an e-learning platform within the Africa Mechanize. They include the centers of excellency, which could be identified and supported to undertake training, outreach, research, and linkages, but also identifying some of the best practicing organizations which could undertake some such functions. We have also the communities of practice of mechanization service providers, but also an inclusion of a toolbox. In the partnerships and networking, we are looking at communities of practice. As I said, not only service providers, but manufacturers, researchers, and academia. We are looking at e-forums and webinars and knowledge management and events sharing. Since the launch of this platform in October last year, several continental webinars have been undertaken, and we have had interesting exchanges from this platform, including a discussion paper. We have had 5 webinars conducted in both English and French, covering 43 speakers and 900, about close to 1,000 participants from 74 countries. The magazine and journal is basically meant to undertake in-depth coverage of evidence-based sustainable agricultural mechanization, goods and services. This is for enlightenment, for learning, but also for entertainment. We are looking in terms of the technical assistance at how to harness the African and the external expertise so that we can strengthen institutional, organizational, and technical capacities so that the expertise which is already available in there can strategically contribute to the conservation agriculture and sustainable agricultural mechanization agenda. We are looking at a panel of experts. We are looking at sustained backstopping and supporting institutions, organizations in developing strategic documents and programs. Our fundamental importance also in the technical assistance is in monitoring and evaluation and impact documentation to ensure that the work which is being initiated, which is being done, can be tracked, can be mapped, to learn from the mistakes, to learn from the successes, and use those to upscale further the initiatives. Under this impact documentation, individuals will be able to drill down to national dimensions and find out which programs are there, what are the successes, and what are the lessons that can be extracted and learned and shared. To conclude, we still have a number of webinars in the pipeline this year and also next year, covering different themes like manufacturing, testing, and standards, cross-border trade and distribution of agricultural mechanization inputs and services. And here we are looking at how we can operationalize the African free trade protocol that was launched, but also element 7, like Joseph Mpagalile has mentioned, how we operationalize, how we bring social sustainability with the roles of small-scale farmers and organizations, women and youth being addressed. So we welcome all of you to these upcoming webinars. And just to say, we are not-for-profit, so we sincerely appreciate the cooperation and support of our development partners, FAO, the Norwegian Development Agency, and also the newly established partnership with the African Union. Thank you very much, Chair. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Saidi, for that presentation. I think you're bringing the dimension of knowledge management, knowledge sharing, information sharing as a way of facilitating the uptake of conservation agriculture in Africa. Thank you. We will now shift gears, go a gear higher, and move on to experiences from the field, which is more from the farmers, from extension, from academia. We are going to have 5 speakers, and they'll be sharing their experience with Mechanized CA, highlighting the challenges, the opportunities, and what are the drivers for the uptake of mechanization in conservation agriculture systems. The first speaker is Ms. Pauline Moghambi, a smallholder farmer in Nakuru County in Kenya. She will share a journey on commercializing and diversifying smallholder farming through conservation agriculture. Over to you, Ms. Moghambi.
I'm Pauline Moghambi, a smallholder farmer in Kelma village, Musop Ward, Nakuru County, married to Edward Moghambi, blessed with two children, a boy and a girl. A girl has recently graduated from the university, and the boy is ongoing. We have a land of approximately 0.6 hectares with 2 permanent houses. CA was introduced to me on 2004. Before CA, our farming involved main crops of maize and beans. We had no livestock. We had extremely low crop yields. Farming was hard and tedious and unproductive. There was no happiness in the family, since every time I asked for money from my husband, he could say, "Do you think every time is end month?" So that frustrated me so many times. Household nutrition was a challenge to us. In 2004, when CA was introduced, as I said, 2005, we started with CA-SAD, started adopting it in 2005, minimum soil disturbance, permanent soil cover, and the crop rotation as 3 principles of CA. As I was doing that CA, the first surplus from sale of maize, I bought poultry, then dairy cow. After dairy cow, biogas. From there, kitchen, garden. And on 2018, we extended our main house. Again, last year, we started constructing guest house, which has just finished. The CA principles, the 3 of them, minimum soil disturbance initially, reaping, planting, share weeding, etc. Permanent soil cover, I use cover crops, desmodium, crop rescue for mulching, and in crop rotation, I rotate with maize, pomerods, beans, and mucuna. Effects and impacts of adoption of CA we gradually diversified to other crops. Main crops yield increases, diversify to other enterprises, especially integrated livestock into my CA. Our farm soil fertility improved. Farming is now enjoyable and fruitful. We have enough time. There is now happiness in the family. Meeting family daily requirements is no longer a problem. With the introduction of livestock and increased income, we are very happy. Now you can see the pictures of our farm and what we are doing. In the graph, you can see the trend, how it goes with CA, since 2005 to 2016. And the increase and the decrease is because of the climate change. When the climate is too low, is too poor, that's when the production is very low. And as you can see from 2010 to 2015, I was planting only maize, so I realized that the production has come down because of lack of crop rotation, which I did in 2016. The graph of the livestock income and service provision is good. If the income from dairy and the CA service provision is low compared to dairy because service provision is just for a while, just 1 month, and the poultry is not the major business I'm doing. Now it's dairy. The graph of the pomerods and silage yields annually, if it was for sale, you can see it has really improved from 2016 to 2020. If it was for sale, I could have much more income, but it is still income because I'm using it. When you convert it to money, it is just much for us. With CA, even during worst seasons, we can get something compared to our neighbors who are not doing CA. Some of our neighbors have started adopting the technology based on our achievement. With CA, a lot of time has been saved, and I used to start time to tender my family, take care of the livestock, and provide job planter services to the neighbors without straining. Biogas enables my husband to cook sometimes. That's something which he was not doing before when we were using firewood Tico. We are self-sufficient now and happier. I use cover crops and cereal from biogas to fertilize the soil. I no longer use inorganic fertilizers, and that's why you can get microorganisms in the soil. As I conclude, I must say I'm now happy to be called a farmer. CA has unlocked doors to happiness in my family. I feel more valuable and valued, and I feel like flying on air. To complete my vision, I require support for smallholder mechanization for my CA and CA service provision, such as walking tractor, and for my livestock enterprise, automated forage, chopper, hay baling, and branding feeds. In conclusion, CA technologies has transformed my life and my livelihood. With hand tool mechanization job planter, consistent training and mentoring by extension SCT. Integrating CA with livestock enterprises. From my experience, I attest that smallholder farming with 0.6 hectares can not only feed and meaningfully employ a family, but fight and eliminate poverty. My advice to the Congress, investors, policymakers, CA for smallholder works, but to alleviate and eliminate poverty, its promotion needs to be bundled with the appropriate smallholder mechanization and livestock production. Consider investing in smallholder farmers. In longer terms, backstop the programs, because that one, it will enable the farmers to eliminate poverty. Thank you.
Ms. Moghambi, for that presentation where you have shown us how you have grown your journey through using conservation agriculture to diversify your enterprises. I think what you have said is important. CA works, and it's a tool that we can use to address poverty and hunger. But you start small, you grow, you diversify, and you expand and become more sophisticated. Thank you very much, madam. Our next speaker is Ms. Erna Kruger, who is the director of Matlatin Development Foundation in South Africa. She will speak on CA innovation systems and climate resilience for smallholder farmers. Over to you, Erna.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to do a very quick run through of a participatory innovation systems program we've used.
Good afternoon from South Africa. This is Erna Kruger presenting a case study of our smallholder farmer innovation program in conservation agriculture, supported by the Maize Trust. The goals and objectives of this program have been to increase farming production and productivity for smallholders, specifically to also improve their natural resource status, and then to promote systems for providing appropriate value chain support through participatory research, through looking at ways to increase sustainability and efficiency of the systems, and to strengthen the use of different innovation platforms. So the program's strategy is based on a farmer-centered innovation system with different thematic areas. The first is awareness raising and access to information. And this activities here include stakeholder interactions, partnerships, and horizontal and vertical scaling of the actions, as well as farmers' days, symposiums, cross visits, and conferences. Then the second theme is incentives and market-based mechanisms, and under these we have activities such as subsidies for inputs, village savings and loan associations. We work with setting up farmer centres for local access to inputs, and we look at group-based access to equipment and infrastructure related to conservation agriculture. The central focus is, of course, the on-farm farmer-led research, which revolves around farmer-level experimentation in different aspects of conservation agriculture, such as intercropping, crop rotation, inclusion of different cover crops, and livestock integration into the system. Education and training is an underlying and underpinning theme. So within the learning groups, the training is provided, but there are also practical demonstrations and workshops, field assessments, and those kinds of activities. So the results have been set out into 3 different sets of indicators that we've designed and then assessed. These are social agency or socioeconomic indicators, value chain indicators, and productivity indicators. They're a mix of qualitative and quantitative indicators, and we obtain the information through individual interviews, focus group discussions, surveys, and technical monitoring. So the social agency results consist of looking at the number of participants, so how the program is growing, how the number of learning groups or villages involved are growing, what the gender distribution of the participants are, who's involved in savings groups, and setting up of innovation platforms. So we found that the horizontal scaling is quite successful in that we can double the number of participants almost on an annual basis in this way. It's basically word of mouth. People talk to each other and their neighbors, and the villages are increasing that way. And the village level focus also helps to ensure the involvement of poorer farmers and women into these groups and into the farming system. The savings groups are central to ensuring continuity and sustainability of the whole process. So people have the money to be able to buy the inputs and to continue their farming under difficult conditions. And the platforms have helped us increase and set up our public-private community-based partnerships. The value chain results revolve around food provisioning, so how much maize is produced and for how long a family can survive off that maize, and then sale of surplus, because people eat first and sell if there is any surplus, setting up of farmer centres and cooperatives related to their field cropping, co-financing of some of the infrastructural requirements such as planters, there's a bit of irrigation, fencing, those kinds of things, and then mechanizing committees. So we found that conservation agriculture can improve their food production dramatically by about 200 to 400% over a period of 4 to 6 years. It takes a while as the system settles into the new processes. The farmer centres are important in building social agency and local development options. People can sell the inputs there. They can also sell some of the supplementation for the livestock. They can give advice to other farmers. It's often where the group-based equipment is also managed and rented out from there. Matching grants have helped a little bit in providing development and agricultural infrastructure. And then the learning groups start to independently undertake some local value chain activities like the marketing and the mechanization committees were done by the groups themselves. Productivity has been pretty much our central focus in terms of seeing how conservation agriculture changes the system and quantifying some of those results. So what we found is that it assists and improves in stabilizing crop yields under extremely variable climatic conditions. So crop yields for conservation agriculture can be higher and often are higher than the conventional alternative for farmers, but it really does depend on the climatic conditions. It's not always the case. But what we have found is that we have an average yield now of about 4.5 tons per hectare for the CA, and in comparison, their conventional agriculture averages are around 2.3, or have remained the same really over the last 7 years, at about 2.3 tons per hectare. The crop diversification has been very interesting for people because they can now produce a wider range of food crops as well as feed and fodder for their poultry and their livestock. We found some significant increases in soil organic carbon in some places. So in general, we're saying it is possible in these systems, despite the variability in climatic conditions, and despite the slightly lower soil cover that is typical of smallholder situations due to stover being grazed in winter. The crop water productivity is significantly increased through the practice of the CA and the inclusion of the diverse species. So it has improved from about 0.8 kgs per cubic meter to 1.6. So that's significantly.
Okay, so the recording has stopped and I'll start talking. I'm sorry about that. It was a little bit confusing. These are just some photographs for our farmers. I'll just run through them from the top left to the bottom right. So those are some of the implements we promote and work with local private service providers to supply to the farmers. So handheld, animal drawn and tractor drawn planters. Then we go to a plot of winter cover crops, mixed crops. The next one is a strip cropping trial for one of our farmers in Bergville with maize and cowpeas and summer cover crops. And then the bottom, Are some calves feeding on the winter cover crops? Okay, sorry, that went forward without me. So just to conclude, we feel that there have been multiple benefits for the farmers under really difficult conditions, and that they've taken very large strides to creating sustainable farming system. Thank you very much. Back to you, Lewis.
Thank you very much, Erna, for that presentation. I think you highlight some important aspects that need to be considered when promoting conservation agriculture. The social dimension, the economic dimension, the financial dimension, and looking at the village focus, a scale focus, not just at plot level, so that you don't leave anyone behind. And in a world where water is becoming scarcer and scarcer in Africa, I think the increase in water productivity is a big plus, and the multiple benefits you mentioned. Thank you very much, Erna. Our next presentation is from Mr. Domingos Dias. He is the head of research department at the Mozambique Agricultural Research Institute. He will share preliminary results from their work on the evaluation and dissemination of small tractors in conservation agriculture in the Angonia plateau of Mozambique. Over to you, Domingos.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Domingos Dias from National Agricultural Research Institute of Mozambique. Today I'm going to present this work, which has a title of Initiating the Evaluation and Dissemination of Small Tractors in Conservation Agriculture in Angonia Plateau in Mozambique. These are the preliminary results from the Agricultural Productivity Project from Southern Africa, funded by the World Bank. Introduction and the context of the presentation. Farmers in Tete, Mozambique spend the highest proportion of their working time preparing ridges by using hand hoes, and the drudgery associated with the land preparation results in a loss of productive time. We have this figure here showing how woman and the child, they suffer every year preparing this land by hand hoes, the small hand hoes, and they are here in real, almost real time preparing the land. So we mechanize these activities to increase farmers' labor productivity and crop yields in seasons 2016-18 by establishing 14 trials in 5 communities of Sangano and Angonia districts in that province. The project hypothesized that mechanizing the construction of CA raised beds, which accessible technologies to farmers, would enable them to increase their labor productivity and crop yields, and then reduce a farmer's tragedy, especially for women and children. The overall objectives was to increase the productivity and resilience of maize and legume cropping systems, and the specific objectives were to test the effectiveness and acceptability of mechanized and conservation agriculture, based degraded raised beds with preparation methods, and then to create local capacity with the use of small four-wheel tractors, which has less than 30 horsepower, and then lobby for policy support towards mechanization of smallholder farmers system in Mozambique. We have here in figure 2, whereby this ridge has been prepared using small tractors and ridges, and here is the farmers very happy showing their produce at the end of the season. Methodology, we had agronomic practices, and we under 2 key studies. The agronomic practices, in all trials have 5 treatments with 1 replicate per farm. I said we have 14 farmers, and we use the new released variety. One is pristine, and another one is CAL 143. This variety of bean. We use what is mandatory to by Research Institute, 8 kilos of N, 60 of K, and 30 of 6 of P and 30 of K in terms of fertilization. In terms of stats, we organized baseline surveys to assess the existing knowledge and acceptability of mechanized CA practices. Soil moisture using the DTR 300 instruments to measure soil moisture in the top 20 centimeters once every 2 weeks were also done. Farmers meeting and participatory evaluation of treatments were performed, and all data were analyzed using ANOVA. In terms of results and analysis, where we have here the result of agronomic analysis, which preliminary analysis of the results from the 2 seasons suggested significant higher yields from the improved treatments compared to the conventional farmers' practice, that's in figure 5, where the conventional practices, here farmers' practice was lower compared to the R. The highest yield were observed from the improved ridges, the flat systems. In that season, flat system was higher produced because there were no local waterlogging because of reduced rainfall. In terms of economic analysis, it shows that under mechanization, mechanized CF, farmers need 96% less labor compared to the conventional practice. Labor reduction from the use of small tractors arose from the time saved from land preparation, ridge preparation, in contrast with conventional practice. It's clear here on table 1, for example, results. Mechanized CA flat improved ridges with furrows and mechanized CA raised beds with cross ties have proved to be the most beneficial CA options demonstrated by higher yields. CA flat followed by improved ridges with furrows and mechanized CA on raised beds with cross ties has higher yields and benefits than the farmer's practice. So CA flat had higher benefits as there was no waterlogging because of reduced rainfall, as said earlier on. In terms of ensuring visibility and sustainability, we have the visibility side here. We produced 5 policy briefs. One was on seed importance and seed networking and seed producers. The second one was on CA, the importance of CA and how many people are practicing CA here in Mozambique. Another one was on mechanization, the use of mechanization, particularly for these projects here. The fourth one was sustainable intensification benefits. And the last one was the new pests and diseases. 3 policy meetings, one local, another one national, and one regional were organized together with Simileza. The one Kampala declaration was produced by policy makers, particularly ministers of agriculture of Eastern and Southern Africa, emphasizing the importance of mechanization on CA. Innovation platform formed by Total Land Care, and now farmers are buying small tractors and ridges. They are using this small land, Total Land Care, which is the most partner for our projects in Angonia and Sangano districts. Dissemination material for outscaling, we have outscaling locally and national radio, and we have newspapers, and we have posters, and we have also TV, for example, disseminating of these all outscaling materials. In the final, in terms of environmental and social safeguards, so chemical use includes glyphosate, sprays, weeds, fertilizer, and spirometrin. And the trainings of extension safe use of this chemical was organized and was done. And some modest doses were used, for example, in these trials, and the safe disposal of chemicals and the containers as well, we took care of that. In terms of conclusions, small tractors enable significant labor saving, and we can conclude that farmers were amazed by the mechanized preparation of ridges. They conclude that this project will help to reduce the workload of women and children in preparing annual ridges. The average maize yields from the improved practice all showed an improvement above that of conventional farmers' practices. Yet, the CA flat system in these seasons, in this case, portrayed the highest yields and effect attributed to the poor rainfall received in the season. That did not result in waterlogged conditions arise. So it still can be used, for example, when you are where you have less rainfall in that system. Otherwise, you can use that one on the other agroecological regions. Further studies are warranted to explore the merits of test practices. In fact, we are now doing this in different provinces and regions, and we have already presented a specific protocols, for example, to be used by small-scale farmers via extension networks. And thank you for listening to me. And that's all that I have to present.
Thank you very much, Domingos. This is a very exciting results confirming the advantages of mechanizing CA in terms of the efficiency of using the labor as well as the productivity of the land. Thank you. We now move on to the next presentation, which is by Dr. Rabe Yahaya from CIMIT, Ethiopia. He will present on mechanization service provision adoption in Ethiopia. Over to you, Yahaya.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. I'm extremely happy to be part of this event, and I would like to congratulate FAO and the ECT for giving me this opportunity to present to you and share with you my experience on mechanization service provision adoption in Ethiopia. Yeah, I will walk you around the introduction, rationale, methodology, and approach, findings and results, conclusion, and way forward. Yeah, it's clear what we have here today. I mean, we know what are the issues on mechanization, but also the area of study, Ethiopia. We know that more than 42% of the GDP is contributed or dominated by agriculture sector, and 85% of labor force are also in this sector. So our area of study is obviously from the northern of Ethiopia, Tigray, to Amhara and the Oromia state regions. Yeah, the rationale of the mechanization, you may see in my graph at your right side, the less drudgery you will have, the more productivity you will have. And so it's quite important that mechanization reduce drudgery and at the same time increase labor productivity and the overall agricultural productivity. But we know also it's improved the quality of field operation through row planting, more precise plant population, seed and fertilizer placement. But also we know it's key important for the timeliness of delivery of operation. Yeah, what was our methodology and our approach? Mechanization hire service provision model through effective involvement of actors along agricultural mechanization value chain and stakeholder was key success factor in our approach. So we involve, let's say, the academia, but also the private sector and other national research centers, and also, of course, farmers. What we did, of course, is not about, we tested first all those technology. We didn't reinvent the wheel. Most of those technology are available, so we test, evaluated, readapt, and demonstrates, and mostly those are two-wheel tractor-based technologies. At your right side, you will see direct seeders, reaper harvester, maize planters, but also sheller and thresher, as well as water pump or trailer. So we bundle those implement together our two-wheel tractor, and that's what the selling point of our technology. Then, of course, we have identified some appropriate business model based on site specificity, but also on the delivery commercial-based system. We also develop partnership and facilitate linkage among value chain actors. We build also capacity and train technically, but also business and financial management. We also put also some exposure, through demonstration and also visits and sharing experience, and of course, scaling through leasing scheme. I'll come later to this. Yeah, so I'm extremely happy to share with you some economic finding on mechanization hire service here in Ethiopia. It's intensively improve reduction as a result of, in terms of percentage, the reduction as a result of hiring technology. Here is an example of direct planting. So if you compare versus technology use and non-technology, so we are about 45%, in terms of cost reduction per hectares. So you may see, for example, from cost of without mechanization, which is around nearly $189 per hectare, and we were able to bring it down to $100 US. So it's reduced obviously the production cost extensively. We did this with other also set of implements that will come later here. We see also the reaper, how it's also important here. You see the versus, the conventional and using a reaper harvester on TEF system, but also on wheat system. But those data are based on wheat system. So you see also here about 65% in terms of cost reduction. We further also investigate, for example, in terms of cost reduction in threshing wheat compared to the conventional, using animals and using very simple thresher that we have been able to produce here locally, about 48% also in terms of cost reduction. So it's depend, of course, without mechanization, it's clear, so we have only one system, but we have the chance to investigate different combination of accessory. So either we have direct seeder, reaper, thresher, and trailer, but also the next model could be direct seeder, reaper, and thresher. But we just play the game of different type of set of implement. And as you can see, in terms of value added, so you are between 1,210 US dollar to 2,500 US dollar, compared to only 1,138 dollar per hectare as gross margin, for example. So it's mechanization here significantly increased gross margin of farmers that adopt different services. It's also, again, here you may see also the net present value in terms of also payback period years, but all those we played with different type of set of implement. Scenario 1, when you have more range of implement, and to scenario 11, where you will have only maybe one thresher, for example. So as you can see, the payback period for all those different business model vary from 1.08 year up to nearly 3 years, let's say 272. So it's quite important what we found. The more implements the service provider will have, which will keep him busy extremely 365 days a year, the more profitable his business model is. So yes, we talk about productivity, reduction in cost of crop establishment, sure, improving yield of wheat and maize, but also timeliness of operation, reduces labor, drudgery, potential for improved CA adoption, but also the private sector involvement. We have observed here in Ethiopia a growing number of small-scale mechanization technology importers. When we started, we were talking about 1, but now we are around even around 10 or 10 plus, for example. We have seen also emerging private training center. Impact on social inclusion, employment opportunity for youth. It's prevail on rural areas, access, higher service for women, also headed household is also becoming eminent. Scaling start of two-wheel tractor-based technology leasing scheme, we started this, but also we have observed also great increased interest of microfinance, which now are even willing now to offer, credit without any, let's say, guarantee fund or collateral, for example, in Ethiopia. Yes, so far, we have been able now, at least in the project, in study areas, to achieve almost 111 service providers on two-wheel tractor based, and you may see the number of two-wheel tractors is above 130, but also on specific area of studies, the number of wheat planters. I would like to make here clearly here, so service providers are making on average $30,000 per season, and up to 76% increase in gross margin for farmer users of mechanization service compared to non-user. In conclusion, so we do see the scaling potential for further impact is likely to be achieved in collaboration with key stakeholders. I mean, private sector, Bureau of Agriculture, Extension Services, microfinance institutions who are now really join us, farmers, service provider and development agency by targeting potential areas, financing scheme, institutionalization, distribution and after-sale networks, skill in extension services that support, not against, small-scale mechanization and private sector investment, joint venture, private-public partnership, continuous mechanization-friendly policy for rural economy, transformation, climate resilience, and CA adoption. And finally, what is very important is it is anticipated that the success of the mechanization hire service provision will lead potentially to CA adoption in Ethiopia and in sub-Saharan Africa. The way forward, effective extension work by Ministry of Agriculture and other stakeholder, policy advocacy on mechanization, instead on CA alone. Finance access need to be strengthened, further improvement of quality and efficiency of machineries, demand creation by private sector and stakeholders in non-project sites, strengthening support services, training center, certification, distribution, repair and maintenance, as well as spare parts. Thank you very much for your attention. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Yahaya, for that presentation. Again, confirming the positive that come with practicing conservation agriculture, more so if it's mechanized. Thank you. We now move on to the last of the case studies, which is going to be a recorded presentation by Mr. Godfrey Omulo, who is a PhD student with the University of Hove. He will present findings from his research on mechanized conservation agriculture.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my delight to share with you about climate-adapted farming methods, which is a case study of mechanized conservation agriculture in Zambia. This was a joint project between the local partners, Zambian German Agricultural Knowledge and Training Center, AKTC, and the University of Arnhem. My name is Godfrey Omulo. I am a PhD student at the University of Arnhem in Germany, and my supervisors are Professor Regina Bina, Professor Karl-Heinz Kohler, and Dr. Thomas Daum. As an introduction, conservation agriculture has been deemed as a climate resilient and a sustainable practice that is fit to enhance food security across sub-Saharan African countries. However, despite the evidence of its positive benefits, CA adoption has been limited. Among the many reasons, mechanization or lack of mechanization has been cited, and this has made it more labor intensive. This study sought to investigate the potential differences between mechanized conservation tillage practices and mechanized conventional tillage practices in the context of time use, fuel consumption, labor costs, soil moisture retention, soil temperatures, and also the overall yields. This study is significant, noting that it is one of the first large-scale on-farm experiments with a focus to medium-scale farmers or the so-called emergent farmers in Zambia. About the study location, this study was conducted in the central province of Zambia, specifically in the agroecological zone 2A, which is characterized by rainfall amounts of 800 to 1,000 millimeters annually. The project was conducted at the Golden Valley Agricultural Research Trust, which is located in Chibombo district, and an experimental field which had been fallow for 3 years was set aside, and 8 hectares was set for maize plot and 7 hectares was set for soybean. Now, conventional tillage practice, that is burning and disking, was compared with conservation tillage practice, that is reaping and direct seeding. These 3 tillage practices were assigned on these main plots based on the randomized complete block design and replicated 4 times to yield a total of 12 plots in the 2 main plots. The crops were then rotated in the subsequent season, and this was done for a period of 2 years or 2 seasons, 2019 to 2021. In terms of agronomic applications, the maize variety and the soybean variety planted were the most commonly planted in the region, and other aspects of plant spacing, seed rates, fertilizer application, both for basal and top dressing, were based on the recommendation from the Ministry of Agriculture. Because this was a mechanized experiment, these are the machinery and the implements that were used, except for harvesting. So we used 60 horsepower 2-wheel tractor. We used 2 tandem disc harrow. We used 2-time reaper, which we had to modify with trash wheels and depth control wheels to fit our conditions, and also 2-row direct planter. We also use 2 12 meters wide boom sprayer, and then also 700 liters fertilizer spreader. All these machinery and implements were acquired locally in Zambia. Now, to show you briefly our findings, in terms of soil moisture and temperature, as can be seen in this figure here, no till plots recorded high soil moisture retention than the discarded plots across the soil depths in the entire season. At the same time, soil temperatures were higher on the discarded plots compared to the no-till plots across the soil profile. Now, the difference in soil moisture retention and temperatures could be attributed to the soil cover. On the no-till plots, we had residue retention, which basically shielded the soil from direct sunlight and evaporation, while on the discarded plots, the plots were basically uncovered. Looking at yield and rainfall use efficiency as the agronomic factors, yield varied greatly across the 3 tillage treatments. In the first season, there was slightly higher yield on the conservation tillage practices compared to the conventional disc harrowing for both maize and soybean. However, in the second season, disc harrowed plots registered significantly higher yields on the maize compared to reap and no-till, while on the soybean, there was no significant difference across the 3 tillage treatments. Now, this could be attributed to the difference in rainfall recorded in the 2 seasons. In the first season, we had low rainfall, up to 714 millimeters of rainfall the entire season. And in the second season, we had high amount of rainfall, that is 1,068 millimeters of rainfall. So as can be seen in the rainfall use efficiency here, there was high rainfall use efficiency in the dry season compared to the second season when we had a lot of rainfall. And in that case, conventional disc harrow plot registered high rainfall use efficiency for both soybean and maize. These findings conform to other researchers' findings who already noted that rainfall use efficiency reduces in conservation plots with high amount of rainfall recorded. In terms of socioeconomic considerations, this table shows the analysis of variance, and we can also see great variation in terms of time. There was generally high time saving on the conservation tillage practices, specifically no-till for both two seasons across the two crops as well, compared to the discarded plots. In terms of fuel saving, great amount of fuel was saved on the no-till plots for both maize and soybean compared to reaped or discarded plots. There was, however, no significant difference in terms of cumulative labor charges across the three tillage treatments. This could be because the only differentiating factor was the land preparation. Otherwise, all other agronomic considerations were the same. Important to note is that conservation tillage practices recorded slightly higher profits or gross margins in the first season compared to the discarded plots. In conclusion, we will say that no-till and soil cover enhances water infiltration and soil moisture retention in dry seasons than the conventional tillage practices. The high yields in the CA in dry seasons show they are fit for rainfall use deficient areas compared to conventional practices. Then also time and labor constraints, which are common in CA, could be overcome by use of mechanization, thus saving fuel use, harnessing increased productivity. Mechanized conservation agriculture can be seen to have short-term positive impacts on the overall crop yield, soil and water retention, and also on its profitability. However, there is need for long-term evaluation of such practices to continue building on their impacts in the local context. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Godfrey, for again confirming the positive benefits of the benefits of CA under different contexts. Most strikingly, maybe is the huge savings in terms of fossil fuels. I think this is an important contribution to the mitigation. We now come to the end of the case studies, and thank you very much to all the presenters who have given us rich presentations. It's time for maybe, we've run out of time, but we'll allow maybe 2-3 questions from the participants so that we have a short discussion on what has been presented so far. I would like to invite participants to field their questions by raising their hands or provide your question in the chat box so that we can, the presenters can respond to your questions. May you please be concise, to the point with your questions. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much. And we have to close, but to just quickly summarize that the benefits of CA are very clear, and the African smallholder farmers need support to transition to CA. And public-private investments are necessary. The collaboration, the partnerships, and the coordination is critical. And we see that conservation agriculture can contribute to better environment, better production, better nutrition, and better lives. Thank you very much all for attending, for joining us in this session, and goodbye. Bye.